Okay, so this is my explanation of my code. This is going to be for messenger with files, sorry. So we're going to start off with the front end. This is going to be what displays the messages and determines whether it's going to be a message or a file. So we listen for different options, and I just do everything to lowercase because that's what the assignment said, they had to be lowercase. So just in case the user doesn't type that, I have a check for that. And then we just have simple if-else statements down here that check for the different outputs that will then, determine the rest of the program. So down here, we're going to have server connect. That's just going to be simple and connects to the server. And then that's how we establish our connection. Then we're going to be listening for connections with our listener. This really just listens to a specific socket, and we just wait till we get something. And then in our main down here, I import a couple of things. I actually made another file over here that we're going to get to in a bit that has a class that we use a little bit more for reading messages and files. I actually have a clever way down here also that we're going to be reading files and making sure that they get read and transported properly. So yeah, we have these imports. Then we have isServer, which is set to false here, which is just a check that we're going to make down here. So if we have an argument if argc is equal to 3 and isServer is equal to 1, then we know we're going to be acting as a server. But otherwise, we're not going to be acting as a server. Or rather, if this sets it equal to 1, this makes sure the server is set. Then we're going to have a length for the host length of just the arguments that we're going to be having. Then we're going to have if server is equal to 1. So if it's actually a server, then we're going to be listening to different sockets. But otherwise, we're not going to be listening to it. We're just going to be setting it equal to localhost and whatever the fourth argument was that we set. Then we're going to use message getter, which is on this side. It's a class from a different file, which we imported up here. And that's just going to start. And then while true, we're going to be having input message from our front end, which we established all the way up here, which tells the user, that's the user telling us what we're going to be doing. And then we just do a flush to get rid of spaces and things we don't want in there. Then I have a res, which is equal to the input that we got. And then we're just going to have a message, which we're going to have as a tuple, which is going to be an input message, and then the res, which we have as the input. Input message, like I said, is what we're going to be doing with it, or what it's going to be, which is all read and done over here. What happens with full? We'll get to that in a bit. And then we're going to try a socket connection, or to send this to a socket. And if that doesn't work, we're just going to close it. And we have another try down here, which will also shut down the socket and close it if we're done or if we didn't get what we needed. Okay, so this is the different file that I imported over here, submessenger, and I import message getter because message getter is the main class. Okay, so in here for our main, we're just going to have establish our thread. Well, it's going to be running on a different thread, so it's going to be running at the same time. And then we're going to have the run, which will be listening to different messages that we're going to be receiving. And then we're going to check if it's going to be a message or a file. And if it is a file, we're going to make sure that the size is just big enough to know, or rather, the bytes that we're receiving will be the size of the file. And then if it's not one of those, we're going to do an exit. And if there's a message, we're going to make sure that the message is in the right way we can read it. And we're going to do that by doing a little bit of checking to make sure it's the right thing we're trying to read, which we're going to do down here. We're going to make sure that the thing we're getting is a tuple because that's what we said we wanted. And yeah, so we're going to try to decode it. And if we get an error, then we know that it's not doing it the right way. We can just do this other decode, which seems to work for some reason. Yeah, once I got that to work, I just didn't bother to mess with it anymore. I just knew that, I just leave these checks in, and then I should be good to go for the rest of my code. But yeah, if it's a message, I'm going to print out the message. And if it's a file, we're going to have some things to do with the file, like set file name equal to the message bytes that were in the first part of message bytes, because that's where the file name is. And then if file stat.st size, then that's the size of the file. And we're going to do an open on it, and then we're going to be sending it using file sender. But otherwise, we're going to say that we didn't find a file. And actually, we have a print statement down here that will tell the user that it's not a file that we found. And then, of course, we're going to do the lower again because the user could have possibly typed the uppercase and we ask for just lowercase. But we do have, actually, if they did type anything we didn't catch or something that we weren't expecting, like M, F, or T, we do have something at the very bottom that says input not recognized. So just it ends up telling the user anyways if they typed in something wrong, and then it can retry again. Right, so then we have the elif for message bytes 0. If that's equal to 0, then we're going to try and set the file name equal to the file name that we have and get the bytes. And then what we're going to do is have if file size bytes, we're going to unpack that. And then if the file size is what we wanted it to be, then we're going to use the file getter, because file getter is something that we set down here. It's our different function, and it's going to get the file. Where were we? Oh, right. And if it didn't get the things, if it didn't get any of this right, then we're going to tell the user that there was an error, the file wasn't found that they were looking for, or otherwise there really wasn't a file, that this file just does not exist to begin with. It's not that it just didn't find it, it wasn't there at all. Oh, and then we have another one where they just typed in the wrong input, again, like I was saying. But I guess this is a later check that happens later. And then we get the file sender. So file sender is in charge of sending files, and it uses our tuple that we set over here earlier to check the structure of everything and make sure that it's finding the file in the right place. And then we have a while true that's going to be reading the bytes of the file, and it's also going to be sending the file here. We're going to close that. And for file getter, it's the same thing. Well, not the same thing. It's the reverse same thing. So this is what gets the file, and so we're going to be receiving file bytes. It's exactly the same thing as this, except we're receiving instead of reading and sending out. And then we have file not found, which is pretty self-explanatory. If the file is not found, then this function's run. I forgot where we run this. File not found. We do have, there was a place. Right here. File not found. That's where if the file is not found, this is where this function gets run. And yep, that is it.